Hey guys, Zomfox here, and today we're going to be looking at the top 10 most graded PSA 10 Pokemon cards of all time, and looking at their current value, and talking about whether or not it should be that current value and what the value actually should be. Now, these cards that are in this top 10 are just insanely easy to come by in PSA 10 condition, as none of these have true scarcity, but some of them are truly desirable and actually meet the demand with their supply, whereas other ones really don't have the demand as much as people think they do. And so we're going to be looking at all of these cards. Now, a little quick caveat. This is going to be looking at Japanese exclusive cards and English cards. Basically, all the Umbria or all the Evolution SIRs from Terrestrial Festival are not going to be a part of this one. I don't want to include Japanese cards that also have English cards, because then we have certain cards like the Sunbreon, like the Japanese SVP 1 promo that was in the Paldea Evolved ETB. This is looking at Japanese exclusive cards and English cards. Now, this list is pretty much all promos for the most part, but if you want to see me do a video just like this one, where we look at the 10 most graded or most PSA 10 graded copies of English sets, let me know down below in the comments. Without further ado, let's get started with Burger Chew. We are going to be going from the top to the bottom because a lot of these cards at the high end, we all know which ones are the most graded. The Burger Chew. By the time this video comes out, this PSA 10 pop might be another few thousand higher. When I was making this, I was using a list that came out like in mid-October, and at that point, this card wasn't even at like 100,000 total copies graded. Now it's at almost 115,000. This card by the end of 2025 might legitimately be at 130, maybe even, it's possible, 150,000 copies graded. This card is one of the easiest quote-unquote chase cards you can ever find. Now, this was a promo that came out just a few months ago this year in Japan. It was a Japanese McDonald's promo. Now, at the first one we've seen, we've had numerous and many other Japanese Pikachus from McDonald's. We've had English ones, we've had other languages and all that. As of this card, super easy to gem. Almost a 90%. It literally is 0.3% off being a 90% gem rate card. So it is super easy. Even for Japanese cards, this is an easy one to get in a PSA 10. As for its current value, it's about $75 in a PSA 10. Give or take $10 either way. 75, that's pretty much your average price. Now, I actually think this is about where it should be. There are some people who have said this card should drop as low as 30, and there's some people who have said this is a card that's going to be worth like 200 in 2 years. In 5 years, it ain't going to be worth 200. If it is, it's overvalued as hell. Right now, I actually think it's where it should be. This should be your quintessential $50 to $100 card. It's one of those that is always going to have enough desirability because of it being a McDonald's promo that actually kind of makes sense in terms of the actual card art. This isn't one of those where it's just taking a random card and, slapping a holographic effect or making a new art, but an art that doesn't actually have anything to do with McDonald's. It has the McDonald's stamp, like a big stamp on the bottom right of the box art, and it has Pikachu with a burger, hence the Burger Chew name. I think it will always have enough desirability to warrant being a $50 to $100 card. This card never, even in like 10, 20 years, unless Pokemon literally like quadruples their printing, this card should never be worth more than $150. It's just much too common of a card. Over 100,000 in a PSA 10 is unfathomable for Pokemon cards, just sports cards in general. This is a really rough one in terms of how many there are, but it still is one that I feel like should be a $50 to $100 card. It just makes sense in that one. There's a lot of sports cards that are like that from like the 90s, even the 2000s, where in a 10 they're always going to have that, baseline of value. I think this is one of those cards that should be a $50 to $100 card, so I'm actually okay with the current $75 cost for this one. Coming in number 2 is the Champions Path ETB promo Charizard V Full Art. Now, this again is talking about the fact that we're not doing Japanese cards that have English printings, because number 2 is the Sunbreon in Japanese. Like I said, Japanese exclusive cards and English cards. So we have the Charizard V. Now, this one was the most graded PSA 10 copy for a while, at about 48,000 total cards graded in a 10, out of about 85,000 in total. Now, this is actually a somewhat tough gem rate at about a 56.6%, especially because this isn't one of those cards where it's, valuable enough to where even a 9 is still, at least somewhat worth getting because of the value of the card. This isn't even one of those. So this is one where it's a legitimate 56.6% gem rate, so it is a tougher gem rate. Now, its current value is 75, and once again, I actually agree. I think it should be $50 to $100. In fact, I wouldn't be against you saying it should be 100 or should be $50 to $150. I do think it's still too common to be worth more than $100. The Burgachu, I just feel like it is such a unique card because of the artwork as this Charizard V, like, especially Sword and Shield. If you were around for the Sword and Shield era early on, they really made this whole Charizard thing super weird with how they handled, like, the Charizard VMAX, the Full Art, the Rainbow, the Shiny. They kind of just threw them everywhere to make it super awkward. This card was a card that was a big deal. I think I talked about this exact card in a video about that last Pokemon Crash that came out. If you want to check that video, you can look at the top right of your screen. But I just made a video where I talked about this card. It's gone down in value a lot. I think it's, again, worth what it should be. This should be, at most, a single Benjamin. It should be $100 at max, at least $50. If it's ever below $50, I'd cop some. I don't think it should ever be that low. It's an iconic card from the era it came out, even though it's not a great card in a lot of other ways. It still is an iconic card. It is still a Charizard promo. It is a tougher gem rate card. It still is a very common card at almost 50,000 PSA 10s, and probably will hit 50,000 PSA 10s by, at worst, February. But like I said, I think $50 to $100 is fine. Cards being worth $50 to $100 are not supposed to be super rare cards. They're supposed to be your simple, iconic, desirable, common cards. That's what $50 to $100 cards, whether it be Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, sports cards, Pokemon, it should, even comic books, right? New Mutants 87, the first, Cable, that should always be like a $50 to $100 comic in near mint value. At some point, the desirability is enough, but it's not rare enough or truly super desirable to be worth more. I think that $50 to $100 is what it should be. Coming in at number 3 is going to be Iono's Wattrel. This is one I don't think a lot of people know about to like the same degree as the other ones, because this is a Japanese exclusive one. This isn't a super iconic Pokemon. It's a Pokemon most people do not care about in Wattrel. Now, this was like a booster box promo in like a similar way to the box toppers, not the exact same, as this was for, the Scarlet Valley 9 Losers Journey Together, their set. Japanese stuff is a bit weirder. I'm not a super expert on the exactly which sets or what their names, but you know what I mean? It's like the Journey Together set. The point is, this is an Iono. That's what's desirable about it. It's not Wattrel, it's the Iono. Now you have the Killer Wattrel, which you have that illustration rare actually in the set. So it's a nice one to pair with this one. This one is currently about $40. It's a pop 46,000 in a PSA 10 out of 54,000 graded. 86 gem rate. So it's lower than the Burgachu, but again, it's still a much higher than 80% gem rate, so it's still a really easy gem card. I think this is about what it should be. I know some people might think this should be higher. I think 40 to 60 is fair. In fact, if you want to go as low as like a $20 to $40 card, I wouldn't be against that either. This is one of those cards where, as much as people might try to hype it up, it really isn't that desirable. Most people who have been in this hobby for a while don't even know about this card. A lot of people that have joined recently don't know about this card. The people that have it graded it because it's Iono, but again, like we're seeing with Canary in Legends EA, we're getting another one of these electric-type gym leaders. Again, we've already had, one from Unova. We've had one from now Paldea. We've had one in Kalos, Part 2 in a way, where we're having these electric female gym leaders having this, different sort of thing they do. Elisa, of course, did like the shows that she did, and then you had Iono being a streamer, and then you have another streamer, Canary. Iono's really not a special character. I mean, she is just, even though Canary is a copy of her, it's a better copy of her in a lot of ways. So I don't think this card's going to have the true staying power that a lot of people might think it is. We've already seen the Ionos from Paldea Evolved go down in value. And yes, part of that was because of the playability, the fact the card became not as playable a card. Like, it's still playable. It went from being like a 4 in every deck to being like a 2 in every deck. Then obviously Paldean Fates reprinted that card. Also because the desirability went down, this card is not really going to hold value because of Wattrel. It's only because of Iono. And at the end of the day, there are better Iono cards. Yes, it might be an exclusive artwork, but again, as you can see here, it's not a rare exclusive artwork. I think $40 is where it should be. Again, 40 to 60 is what I would price it at. If this card went up to $60, I wouldn't be like, oh, this is, being hyped up. Now, if it went to $100, then yeah, it's being hyped up because there's a lot of cards you can get for under $100 that are a lot better than this one. But that's the Iono's Wattrel. Number 4 is the Gray Felt Hat Pikachu, or the Van Gogh Pikachu. The ultimate definition of an overvalued, overhyped card. Now, I mean, there's so many arguments you can be made about this card and why it's overvalued and why people that say it's super desirable just aren't right. Mainly because, like, the obvious two are this. Number one, this is not the Van Gogh self-portrait, because there are numerous Van Gogh self-portraits. There are multiple when you look it up, compared to the Scream painting where there's the one. Now, there are also a Scream Pokemon card, but now it was technically 5 of them. The Mimikyu was really hard to get, but you had the Mimikyu, the Rowlet, the Eevee, the Psyduck, and the Pikachu. Those cards, all 5 of them combined, total PSA pops are less than the 44,537 PSA 10s that this Pikachu has. This Pikachu is going to hit over 100,000 total graded by the end of the year. Now, while it is at a 46% gem rate, this is one of those cards that, due to its value and people just wanting it slabbed because of fakes and stuff, the gem rate of 46% is a bit skewed in the sense that there's definitely a lot of people that have graded this knowing they weren't getting 10s. But it's still, again, it is still a sub 50% gem rate card, but it's not a tough gem. It's a 46%. Its current value of $1,600 is way too much. I think this card was at $2,000 and went down. This card should be about $400 to $600. Now, if you say it's crazy, it's actually very simple. Whatever the Rowlet Scream promo is in a 10, this should be half of that. It's as simple as that. That is the simplest way to determine what the value of this card should be. Now, the Rowlet is about like $1,000 to maybe $1,200. Hence why I'm saying this card should be $400 to $600. It should be half of the Rowlet. The Rowlet is the least desirable of the Scream promos, but as already mentioned, the Scream promos are just better than this one. They're Japanese, so they got better quality, but they're still tough cards to get. They were much shorter printed compared to this one, and they're of a more iconic painting since it's the painting, not one of the paintings. This card is basically a double print. If you know anything about sports cards, like vintage sports cards, like let's take 67 Topps as a quick example. What Topps Baseball would used to do is they come out with series the further along the MLB season that went on. When the last series came out, it would be known as the high series. They printed it for a short amount of time, and it was the hardest set to get, hence why high numbers are worth money. Now in 67 Topps, a lot of cards, about half the cards in that high series, were double prints. What that means is they basically got printed 2 compared to every one of the other ones. That matters with Rod Carew versus Tom Seaver. Both of them Hall of Fame rookies in that set. One's a pitcher, a much better pitcher than the other one's a hitter, but it's a hitter versus a pitcher. In theory, you would assume their value would be almost identical, or the Seaver would be like 10 to 20% higher. Difference is, the Carew is a double print, the Seaver isn't, and that makes the Seaver worth about 2.5x what the Carew is. This card is a double print. They initially did it as a museum promo, but then it was so desired and caused so many issues, they ended up making it a Pokemon Center promo as well. So essentially, this card really is a double print. Even if it was a single print and was half of this, it would still be more common in total grades than all of the Munch promos combined. But because of the double print, this one in a 10 is even more common than all 5 of those combined. So the least desirable one of those should be worth double this one. I know it's Rowlet versus Pikachu, but again, it's a better painting, and a lot of people say this card's worth money because of the, it's a painting and it's a Pikachu, it connects to the real world. The Rowlet does it better. So that Rowlet, whatever that Rowlet should be, or is worth, this should be half of it. That Rowlet's value being $1,000, that should be a $1,000 card. This should not be. This should be $400 to $600. It is the definition of manufactured hype. A bunch of people that own this card don't really care about it. They've only bought it because a bunch of people hyped it up. There's a ton of people hoarding hundreds of these cards. It isn't as desirable as many people have made it out to be. In 3 years, very real shot, this card is worth significantly less than $1,000. This is the ultimate definition of an overpopulated card that does not meet the true demand. It is manufactured hype. And again, if you want to argue that, I'll present you the Munch promos, which are better promos than this for numerous reasons, yet are not worth this amount when you compare the fact that their rarity, their pop reports, their actual desirability versus this one. This one is clearly overvalued. This is the most egregious one of all 10 we're looking at. Because again, up until this point, I've actually believed all the 3 prior are worth what they are. I don't think they're overvalued because of their pop count. This one is. This isn't as desirable as people make it out to be. It is manufactured, should not be worth more than $1,000. Whatever the Rowlet is in a 10, this should be worth half of it. Coming in at number 5 is going to be the Detective Pikachu Returns pre-order. Yes, the Detective Pikachu sequel, this game was hyped for about like 2 weeks and then that was it. But you got this really cool promo. This is a really nice promo. This is one that has been spiking recently. As early as like February of this year, this was a sub $100 card. Now I will say, that was a good chance to buy this card. I think this card should be $100, $200. Currently, it's at 250. I think it should go down a little bit. I wouldn't be against you saying 100 to 300 or 200 to 300, but I personally think it's a little bit high. At the end of the day, Detective Pikachu is not the omega super popular thing. You know, the movie was fun. The first game, I played it. The sequel came out and all that, but it's not like this is something that really had immense staying power. It is a great card, but this is another really easy gem rate card. The 40,000 total pop and the 88% PSA 10 pop count. This is definitely a rarer card than like the Iono's Wattrel for sure. But this is a card I do think is a bit overvalued. I think the fact that it has spiked so much over the past couple of months does kind of show that this card is definitely being a bit manipulated, I think. The way it's just been shooting up in price. But like I said, I do think when it was sub $100, it was a buy. I think this card is a beautiful enough card. It's a great looking card. You have Detective Pikachu riding the little Growlithe, sniffing at, you know, some tracks. It's a great looking card. I do think this should be a $100, $200 card, but I think it's a little overvalued right now. Still a great card. I definitely like this one. This was a great chance to buy this card in early 2025, even in all of like 2024. Right now, though, it's a tad bit overvalued in my book, but it still should be about like a $100 to $200 card. Coming in at number 6, we have another ETB promo, and this is the Hidden Fates ETB promo of the Moltres, Zapdos, Articuno, Cantonian Birds Stained Glass card. You want to talk about a gorgeous card? This is a great card. This is also a card that's had an absolutely wild just trajectory from its value going up and tanking, then spiking earlier this year, and then like kind of going down a bit. I'm going to say something that might be controversial to some people, especially if you've watched my videos and how I've talked about pop counts. I actually think this card is undervalued. I think this should be a $300 to $400 card. Right now, it is about $275. Now, I believe when I was looking, it's like $260 to $290. Like, this really has a range. For all intents and purposes, a $275 card. I think this should be $300 to $400. I think this card is what a lot of people say the Van Gogh is, which is a card that's artwork really transcends the card itself and does deserve that desirability. This is what people say the Van Gogh is. Now, this card has a tough gem rate. Not a tough gem rate, but a tough one, 58.8%. It was a promo, and this is a card that is at about 32,000 in a PSA 10 out of 55,000 total graded. I think this is one that deserves to be a bit more in value. I don't think this should be like a $500 card. I don't think it's rare enough for that, but I do think it deserves to be up there. The Cantonian Birds are really underappreciated Pokemon, and even more evidence is like 151. The Zapdos SIR is a significantly better card than the Charizard SIR, yet it's nowhere near the value of it. Then you've got, even though they do have some value, like I think it's Supreme Victors, the retro cards they have are gorgeous. They're worth something, but they're not like worth a ton of money compared to like, again, the Charizard and Stormfront. Like, these guys get pretty underappreciated a lot in the hobby. Would I say that all of their cards are undervalued? There's an argument. I don't know if I would be on that side for sure, but this is a gorgeous one. Having all three of them in this stained glass setting is beautiful. It is such a unique card, and like I said, this is what people say the Van Gogh is. This is a card that really does just transcend the hobby. If you were to show all 10 of these cards that we have here to a random person, I would imagine probably 6 out of the 10 of them are going to say this is the most beautiful looking card. I think it should be worth a bit more. I do regret not getting one of these in the past. This is a great one. So this one I actually think is a bit undervalued. Should be $300 to $400 card. I know some of you might disagree because, again, these are high pop count cards. I know I talked in the last video, and a lot of people, which I agree with, that a lot of these high pop count cards are going to go down in the future. I don't think this one will. I think this is one of the ones that does transcend its pop count because of the demand, because of how beautiful it is. If you join the hobby today, tomorrow, last week, in a year, this is a card that when you see it, you're going to be like, man, there's really nothing better than this. Because respectfully, there's maybe 2 Scarlet and Violet era cards that look better than this one. Maybe 2 Sword and Shield ones look better than this one. I personally don't think there's any Sun and Moon card looks better than this one off the top of my head. I don't think the Lovebirds looks better than this. I don't think the Wailord that looks better. You all know I love that Giratina Garchomp card. I wouldn't say this looks better, or I wouldn't say it looks better. I think this card is up there in the top 10 most beautiful looking Pokemon cards of all time. Definitely deserves to be worth a bit more in my opinion. Now, coming in at number 7 is going to be the Shining Fates Charizard. Now, from the list I did, I don't remember what the title of the list was, but if you know what list I'm talking about, this is one that actually got overtaken by that Cantonian Birds card. This one was number 6, like about a month ago. It used to be number 6, now it's number 7. 31,557 graded into 10, 41,000 total. this is an easy card to gem, especially for an English pack pulled card. A 76% gem rate is really easy. Current value is 300. Again, I think it's worth what it should be. I think this should be a $250 to $350 card. I'm actually okay with this being worth that amount. I think it deserves it. This is a card that was desired, especially if you were around the Sword and Shield era. People really wanted this card. Again, Charizard was really weird how they put cards in all these different sets, but this is a card that was a really desired one. It was a relatively easy chase card to pull. I think it was like one in every like 200 packs, something like that. It was something really easy compared to other chase cards, but it was one that was really desired. I think it should be about $300. This card has had a really weird trajectory as well. Again, I'm pretty sure I talked about the same card in that video I mentioned earlier. I think it's one that deserves to be up here. It's a shiny Charizard card that's a legit chase card, and even though Charizard, in terms of getting a quote-unquote chase card shiny, this is the easiest one because Charizard literally has one in like every single thing minus the Gen 4 ones. He's got a Shining card from Gen 2. It's got the Gold Star from Gen 3. It's got the Shiny Gold from Gen 5. Then it's obviously got the shiny cards in this set, like Shining Fates. It had one like Hidden Fates. It has one in Paldean Fates. It's easy to get one. It's still desirable. I think this card is worth about what it should be. I don't think this card really should tank too much. Because again, there's a big difference from 500 plus cards to less. And again, if I do end up doing the video, if you guys want, or I end up doing it where I look at cards from actual English sets, a big thing you need to know is when you're talking about $500 or $1,000, like those benchmark numbers, there are certain cards or types of cards that should not reach those areas. Like the Van Gogh Pikachu, it should not be a 4-figure card. And there's a lot of pack-pulled cards that should not be 4-figure cards, or at least not, not super low 4-figure cards. When you're talking about under $500 cards, it's a bit different because the amount of people that can actually afford that type of card is so different, which is why I think high pop count cards being under $500, most of them are worth what they should be worth because there is that demand because that many people can get it. When you're talking about cards that we'll talk about in the future, like 151 Zard, where you've still got like over 20k in a PSA 10 and it's worth like over $1,000, like no, it shouldn't be worth that. Especially when you look at some of the vintage, and not even vintage, but just, especially when you look at like something like the Brilliant Stars Zard, which I talked about before, and how cheap that one is compared to 151, despite being a much better looking card. It's insane. So when you're talking about sub $500 cards, a lot of these high pop count ones are worth about what they should. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And this is another example. This is one that is worth what it should be worth. Coming in at number 8 is the only pack pulled card on the list, the Celebrations Classic Collection Charizard. Now, when I say Classic Collection, this is the Classic Collection from Celebrations, not the box set. This is the one, obviously, that had things like the Level X Garchomp, Cynthia's Garchomp, the Zekrom. This is that set, the one that had the reprint cards with the speckle foil and the little 25th anniversary stamp. This is the only pack-pulled one on this list. Now, if I do the pack-pulled card list, I won't include this one because I talked about it in here. This card is the only one set up here. Now, it's a 30,000 PSA 10 pop. Hit that recently, and it's going to hit 50,000 total graded by the end of this year. It's at 48,952. 61.9% gem rate. Again, a tougher gem rate card, just a little bit over 60%. Currently worth 400. I know I just talked about, these sub $500 cards being worth what they should. This one I don't agree with. This one I think should be about 100 to 150 less than it is now. This should be a $200 to $300 card. I actually think the near mint value of $100, I talked about this in my building a Charizard set for $1,000. You can watch that video top right of your screen right now. Where I think that card for $100 is worth it and is the best base set variant Charizard you can get for a collection that you're building right now. But the PSA 10 value, I think it should only be about 2 to 3x what the near mint raw is. Just because at the end of the day, the biggest issue is that this card has been printed to death. Again, you have the Classic Collection version in the Scarlet Violet era. You have the metal card that came in the UPC for this one. You have the Stormfront Remaster retro card of this one. You have the Legendary Collection 1. It's just insane. This card has been printed many times. I didn't include it because it's essentially the same thing, but you've got the 25th anniversary Japanese Charizard of this one. This is a card that has been printed so many different times. And at the end of the day, not all of them should be worth near $500. This is one that I think should be worth $200 to $300. I think it should be a bit less than it is now. This should be, along with the Classic Collection, should be your entry-level copy of a PSA 10 of this, artwork, this iconic Zard, in my book. I think this is currently overvalued. I think the fact that you can get this for $400, you can get a really nice base set 2 Charizard, or even a pretty nice unlimited, like third printing or second printing of unlimited, the shattered unlimited for this price. I don't think that makes sense in my book. I'm sorry. It just doesn't. So I think this card is overvalued right now. I think it should be $200 to $300. Let me know if you agree with that one down below. But again, this is the only pack pulled one in this list. Again, if I do another one, I won't include this one because we already talked about it. But I think it's overvalued. Should be less. Number 9 is another one that shocked me. This is the Unagaba Pikachu promo. When you think of Unagaba, you think of the Evolution ones where you've had those cards that have been, hyped to death for years, but have only like recently started moving. This is one I'm honestly shocked that it's this graded. It's at 28,610 in a PSA 10. It is a tougher gem rate card for a Japanese card, basically at 75% with the 38,000 total graded. I think this is a slightly overvalued card, but not by much. I think this should be like 150 to 200, not 250. At the end of the day, this is one of the rare times where the Pikachu is the least iconic one. When you think of Unagaba cards, you do not think of Pikachu. You think of the Evolutions. You think of the whole Evolution set or your favorite one. I do not think this card should be worth, especially because it's more graded than all of those ones. There's no way this one should be worth 250 because this is worth more than a lot of those other ones in 10s from what I remember looking up for this one. It just should not be worth more than them because this is one of the rare instances where Pikachu is not the most iconic one. When you think of Unagaba, you do not think of Pikachu, you think of the Evolutions. And as for this card itself, again, these cards are also very controversial because a lot of people would talk about the reasons for value cards being worth money is because of the artwork, yet you show them something like this where it's literally just a sketch. It goes against that argument as well. And like I said, for the Evolutions, I think it works because it's a playful way to tell the different stories of them, of each Pokemon, through a very quote-unquote trivial art style. And I mean that respectfully, not disrespectfully. If I meant it disrespectfully, I would say that. I mean it respectfully. But Pikachu, it doesn't look good, in my opinion. It doesn't look as good as the Evolution ones. It's one that I definitely think is a bit overvalued. In fact, I would even argue that I'm overvaluing it at 150 to 200. I wouldn't even be against it. If you were to say this card should be 75 to 125, I would not fight you on that whatsoever. And finally, we have the Eevee Prismatic Evolutions ETB promo. This is one that I bet shocked some of you if you weren't paying attention to this one. That this one is already this high. Again, this is a card less than a year old. Came out with Prismatic Evolutions as their ETB promo. This is obviously the regular one, not the PC stamp one. It is currently $100 in a 10. It is a 43.5% gem rate card, so tough gem, but again, not shocking, so it's an ETB promo. 58,000 graded, averaged close to 59,000. $100 current value, I think that's in the high end of what it should be. I think it's a $50 to $100 card. It's a great Eevee, but is it as good an Eevee as the Eevee IR from like Twilight Masquerade? No. It's like, this is still a great looking Eevee card, but this is not the best Eevee card we've had even in this era alone. And $100 for a really easy to get promo, I don't know about that one. Because again, people talk about, like, this set is still in print. Remember that. This set is still in print. And again, people use the argument about, people hoarding these boxes. There are a lot of these boxes, especially compared to Hidden Fates. I would not be shocked if this card is more printed than the, Cantonian Birds card. It's just a matter of, number one, this set is less than a year old. It's going to keep going up. And number two, the fact that you have a lot of these ETBs that haven't been opened yet. And like I said, it's still being printed. This is a card that easily could hit, like, I do think it would hit 100,000 total graded much faster than 50k total of PSA 10. I do agree with that. This card is just a tough gem. But this is a card that could easily hit like 40k PSA 10s by like Q2 of next year. I would not be shocked about that. And by the end of this year, it's going to be over 60,000 total graded. It's one that's just going to be continuously graded. Again, the Burger Chew is a great example. The Burger Chew has exploded in total copies graded recently just because of the fact of, how it works. Where, it takes time for these cards to get graded, especially the lower tiers. You're talking about like 2 months for some of these cards to get graded. It's just going to keep getting graded more and more. I do think this is the max of its value. I think because it's Eevee, it is a very popular Pokemon. I think that $100 is a good price for this one. I could see you saying 75 to 125, hover around 100. I think this should more like hover around 75. Just because, again, with Eevee, there's a lot of great Eevee cards. $100 can go a long way for Eevee. Once I do because I guess, spoiler alert, the next $1,000 collection I'm doing is Blastoise. I'm probably going to do Eevee very early on, like Eevee specifically. Eevee, you can build a really good collection. $100 can go a long way. I don't know if I'd spend $100 on this card. But overall, that'll do it. This has been ZomFox. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Let me know what your thoughts are on these cards. Do you think I'm right about which ones I think are overvalued or undervalued? Do you think that all these cards should be worth less or more? And again, let me know down below, do you want me to do this video except using pack-pulled English cards like the 151 Zard, the Bubble Mew, and the Sunbrown? I'm pretty sure all three of those would be on that listing and my thoughts on those. Because those ones, spoiler, most of those are overvalued by anywhere from like 20 to even 75% of their current value. Whereas these ones, like I said, the Van Gogh Pikachu, egregious overvalued. The rest of them are either, like a lot of them are worth what they should be worth. Again, I think a lot of these cards are actually worth what they should be. Especially the ones that are super graded. Like the Burger Chew, I really do think it should be a $75 card. I think that's about what it should be. Same with the Charizard V. But when you look at some of these other ones, again, like the Classic Collection from Celebrations, I do think it's overvalued a bit. The Cantonian Birds, I actually think it's undervalued a bit. So let me know down below your thoughts on all that. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, guys, have a great night.